Commander Vex-Nine of the Galactic Survey Fleet had seen many things in his 300 cycles of service. He had witnessed the birth of stars, the collapse of civilizations, and the first contact protocols with 17 different species. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what his sensors were showing him now. "Sir, we're detecting multiple energy signatures from the third planet," reported Lieutenant Kara, her 4 arms dancing across the control panels with practiced efficiency. "The readings are, well, they're impossible." Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked in amusement. Impossible was such a delightfully naive word. In his experience, the universe had a twisted sense of humor when it came to making the impossible quite routine. "Define impossible, Lieutenant." "The energy output suggests a pre-warp civilization, but the defensive grid around the planet is more advanced than anything in our database. It's like they built a fortress using stone tools and somehow made it stronger than our battleships." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Through the viewport, the small blue-green world looked peaceful enough. No massive space stations, no orbital platforms bristling with weapons, no signs of the usual galactic powers. Just a quiet little planet that, according to their records, shouldn't have been colonized for another 1,000 cycles. "Run a spectral analysis," Vex-Nine ordered, settling back in his command chair. His 6 eyes focused on the tactical display. "And cross-reference with the colonial registry. Something tells me we're about to have a very interesting day." 3 hours later, the results came back, and Vex-Nine found himself questioning whether someone had spiked his morning nutrient paste with hallucinogens. "Sir," Kara's voice was barely above a whisper, "according to the genetic markers and communication frequencies, this is Colony Ship Endeavor's destination. The one that went missing 200 cycles ago." "Ah yes, the Endeavor." Vex-Nine remembered the incident from his academy days. A human colony ship, one of their primitive generation vessels, had vanished en route to its designated world. The Galactic Council had written it off as another tragic loss to the void. Humans, bless their fragile little hearts, had a habit of getting themselves killed in the most spectacular ways possible. So they actually made it, he mused, stroking the sensory whiskers around his mouth. 2 centuries of isolation on a backwater world. They're probably still using chemical propulsion and begging for rescue. That's when the first missile struck their shields, the stellar wind lurched violently to starboard, throwing half the bridge crew against their restraints. Warning lights bathed everything in angry red, and the sweet sound of panic filled the air as junior officers scrambled to understand what had just happened. "Report." Vex-Nine barked, his casual amusement evaporating faster than water in a vacuum. "Direct hit to our forward shields." Lieutenant Zack shouted from the tactical station, his scales turning a pale yellow with stress. "But sir, that's impossible. Our sensors show no weapons platforms, no ships, nothing that could have generated that level of focused energy." Vex-Nine's primary eyes swiveled to the main screen, where the peaceful little world continued to spin innocently. Impossible seemed to be the word of the day. "Source of the attack?" "Unknown, sir." The projectile appeared to originate from the planet's surface, but the trajectory suggests it was launched from multiple locations simultaneously and, somehow, converged into a single impact point. The commander felt a familiar tingle at the base of his skull, the same sensation he'd experienced just before his first battle, his first diplomatic disaster, and his first encounter with humans in general. It was the feeling that told him he was about to learn something new and probably unpleasant about the universe. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Standard first contact protocols." "Channel open, sir." "Unknown Planetary Defense Force, this is Commander Vex-Nine of the Galactic Survey Fleet. We come in peace-seeking dialogue with the inhabitants of this world. Please respond." The response came immediately, in perfect galactic standard, with an accent that somehow managed to sound both cheerful and threatening. "Well, well, well. Look what the cosmic cat dragged in. This is General Marcus Kane of the Endeavor Defense Force. You're trespassing in sovereign human space, bug boy. Turn around and fly away, or we'll turn your ship into a very expensive fireworks display. Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked involuntarily. Bug boy? In 3 centuries of diplomatic service, no one had ever called him bug boy. It was simultaneously insulting and oddly endearing. General Kane, I assure you we mean no harm. According to our records, this system was uncolonized. We're simply conducting a routine survey. Laughter filled the bridge speakers, not the polite chuckle of diplomatic courtesy, but the kind of genuine amusement that suggested someone was about to become the punchline of a very dangerous joke. Uncolonized? Friend, we've been here for 200 years. We've got cities, farms, factories, and enough firepower to make your ancestors' feel it. Your routine survey just became a first contact situation, and trust me, you don't want to find out how we handle uninvited guests. Lieutenant Kara's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, our long-range sensors are detecting movement all across the planet's surface. Massive installations are unfolding from what appeared to be natural terrain features. On the main screen, the planet was transforming. Mountain ranges split open to reveal massive cannon emplacements. Lakes drained to uncover launch platforms. Forests parted like curtains, revealing cities that gleamed with technology that shouldn't have existed for another millennium. Sweet nebula of Andrus, whispered Lieutenant Zack. They've turned their entire planet into a weapon. General Kane's voice returned, still carrying that infuriating tone of casual confidence. See, here's the thing about humans, Commander. We learn fast, we adapt faster, and we really don't like surprises. 200 years ago, your people left us to die in the void. We didn't die. Instead, we got creative. Vex-Nine found his voice, though it came out several octaves higher than usual. General, surely we can discuss this rationally. There's no need for hostilities. Oh, there's no hostility here, Commander. This is just how we say hello. If we were being hostile, you'd already be a cloud of superheated plasma. Now, you've got 30 seconds to start explaining why you're in our space, or we're going to assume you're here to finish what your people started. The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as every sensor array focused on the planet below. What they revealed defied every principle of xenobiology and military doctrine in the galactic database. Sir, Kara's voice was shaking. Preliminary scans suggest the entire planetary surface is integrated into a single defensive network. They've weaponized their agriculture, militarized their infrastructure, and somehow managed to hide it all until we got close enough to trigger their response protocols. Vex-Nine stared at the tactical display, watching as thousands of targeting locks painted his ship from every conceivable angle. The humans had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment, for the day someone would come looking for them. And they had prepared very well. General Kane, he said carefully, what exactly do you want to discuss? The laughter that came through the speakers was warm, genuine, and absolutely terrifying. Now that's the right question, bug boy. First, you're going to tell me everything about this Galactic Survey Fleet of yours. Then, you're going to explain why you thought it was a good idea to point weapons at a human colony. And finally, the general's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. You're going to convince me why I shouldn't send a message to your fleet command that involves your ship's debris and a very clear statement about human territorial boundaries. Vex-Nine looked around his bridge, at his crew's terrified faces, at the tactical display showing impossible defensive capabilities, and at the peaceful blue-green world that had somehow become the most dangerous place in known space. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything quite like humans. And judging by the readings coming from the planet below, he was about to learn exactly why that was both a blessing and a curse. The 30-second countdown timer appeared on his screen, and Commander Vex-Nine realized that first contact was about to become far more complicated than any textbook had ever suggested. 29 seconds felt like an eternity when you were staring down the barrel of an entire weaponized planet. Commander Vex-Nine's 6 eyes darted between his tactical officer, his communications array, and the countdown timer that seemed determined to reach 0 with mathematical precision. "General Kane," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding. The Galactic Survey Fleet operates under strict peaceful exploration protocols. We had no knowledge of human presence in this system." 15 seconds, Commander. Kane's voice carried the casual tone of someone discussing the weather, not planetary annihilation. "And for the record, ignorance isn't really an excuse when you're pointing guns at people's homes." Lieutenant Kara frantically worked her console, her 4 arms moving in patterns that would have impressed a concert pianist. "Sir, I'm reading massive power buildups across 17 different continental zones. Whatever they're planning to hit us with, it's going to make our earlier love tap feel like a gentle massage." Vex-Nine made a decision that would either save his crew or get them all killed in the most embarrassing way possible. "General Kane, I'm powering down all weapons systems and extending diplomatic immunity codes. I request permission to approach your world for formal first contact negotiations." The countdown timer stopped at 3 seconds. 3 seconds, the silence that followed stretched longer than the lifespan of some stars. Then, impossibly, Kane started laughing again. Not the menacing chuckle from before, but genuine, belly-deep laughter that somehow made the situation even more terrifying. "Well, I'll be dipped in cosmic radiation. You actually did it. You actually backed down." The general's voice was filled with what sounded suspiciously like pride. "Most species would have started shooting by now. Points for creativity, Bug Boy. Does this mean you're not going to vaporize us?" Lieutenant Zack asked hopefully, his scales slowly returning to their normal blue-green coloration. "That depends entirely on how the next few hours go. Commander Vex-Nine, you and a small diplomatic party are welcome to visit our lovely little world. Fair warning though, we've made some improvements since your people abandoned us. Try not to touch anything that glows, hums, or looks like it might explode. On second thought, assume everything might explode. It usually does." 2 hours later, Vex-Nine found himself in a shuttle with 3 of his best officers, descending toward a planet that defied every expectation he'd ever held about human capabilities. The closer they got, the more impossible everything became. The landing coordinates led them to what appeared to be a standard colonial settlement, complete with agricultural domes, residential sectors, and administrative buildings. It looked exactly like every other human colony in the database, right down to the geometric precision of the street layouts, except for the part where the streets were moving. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Kara, "the entire settlement appears to be reconfigurable. The buildings are shifting positions, the roads are realigning themselves, and I'm detecting massive underground complexes that extend for kilometers in every direction." Their shuttle touched down on a platform that definitely hadn't been there when they'd started their descent. Within seconds, they were surrounded by a reception committee that looked like a cross between a diplomatic corps and a military honor guard. General Marcus Kane stepped forward, and Vex-Nine had to revise every assumption he'd ever made about human military leadership. Kane was tall, even by human standards, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his visitors with unsettling precision. He wore a simple uniform that somehow managed to look more impressive than the ceremonial regalia of most galactic dignitaries. "Welcome to New Haven, gentlemen." Kane's smile was warm and absolutely predatory. Population 4.7 million humans, 12 million automated defense systems, and one very curious alien delegation. Hope you brought comfortable shoes, because we've got a lot to show you. The tour that followed redefined Vex-Nine's understanding of human ingenuity, paranoia, and complete disregard for conventional physics. Every building served multiple purposes. The agricultural domes doubled as atmospheric processors and weapon platforms. The residential areas could transform into bunkers, command centers, or launch facilities depending on the situation. Even the decorative fountains turned out to be camouflaged sensor arrays. "You see, Commander, Kane explained as they walked through what appeared to be a peaceful park. When your people left us to die, we had a choice. We could sit around feeling sorry for ourselves, or we could get creative. Humans have always excelled at getting creative when someone tries to kill us. This level of technological advancement should have taken millennia, Lieutenant Kara observed, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomatic training. How did you achieve so much in only 2 centuries? Kane's grin widened. That's the beauty of human psychology, Lieutenant. When you're convinced that someone's coming to finish the job, you tend to work overtime. We didn't just build a colony, we built a fortress that could think, adapt, and fight back. Every single human on this planet is cross-trained in engineering, agriculture, and warfare. We've got 12-year-olds who can rebuild a fusion reactor and grandmothers who can calculate orbital bombardment trajectories in their sleep. They paused beside what looked like a children's playground. Kane gestured casually, and the swing sets folded away to reveal a surface-to-orbit missile battery that made Vex-Nine's ship look like a child's toy. The kids designed that one, Kane mentioned offhandedly. Wanted something that could reach the outer system without making too much noise. Smart little monsters, human children. Give them 200 years to prepare, and they'll figure out how to weaponize their homework. The real revelation came when they reached the command center, a facility that existed simultaneously above ground, below ground, and apparently in several other dimensions that Vex-Nine's instruments couldn't quite identify. The central holographic display showed real-time tracking of every object within 50 light-years of the system. We knew you were coming 6 months ago, Kane explained, settling into a command chair that looked suspiciously like a throne. Your engine signatures are louder than a supernova to anyone who knows how to listen. We've been tracking your entire fleet since you entered this sector. Vex-Nine felt his mandibles go dry. Our entire fleet? Oh yes, all 47 ships. Including the 3 dreadnoughts you've got hanging back near the nebula, thinking they're being sneaky. Would you like to see the tactical breakdown we've prepared for each vessel? It's quite thorough. Sarah Martinez in strategic planning spent weeks calculating the optimal targeting solutions. The holographic display shifted, showing detailed schematics of every ship in the survey fleet, complete with weak points, crew complements, and estimated time to destruction under various attack scenarios. It was the most comprehensive military intelligence analysis Vex-Nine had ever seen, and it covered technology that should have been centuries beyond human understanding. How, was all he could manage. Kane's expression grew serious for the first time since they'd landed. 200 years ago, your people decided we weren't worth saving. Fair enough, resources are limited, and humans were just another minor species cluttering up the galaxy. But here's what you didn't count on, Commander. Humans don't stay minor for very long. He stood and walked to a window overlooking the settlement. We took apart our colony ship piece by piece and turned it into the foundation of something new. We studied every scrap of galactic technology we could find. We experimented, we innovated, and we prepared. Every human born on this world has grown up knowing that someday, someone would come looking for us. And when that day came, we wanted to be ready. The implications hit Vex-Nine like a meteor strike. You've been preparing for war for 2 centuries. Not war, Commander. Evolution. War is what happens when diplomacy fails. Evolution is what happens when an entire species decides it's tired of being underestimated. Kane turned back to face them, and his smile returned, sharper than before. The question now is, what happens next? Lieutenant Zack found his voice first. What do you want from us? Nothing, Kane replied simply. We don't need rescue, we don't need trade agreements, and we certainly don't need protection. What we want is recognition. Official acknowledgement that this system belongs to humanity, that New Haven is a sovereign world, and that anyone who wants to visit needs to knock politely first. And if the Galactic Council refuses? Vex-Nine asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Kane's laugh was back, warm and terrifying. Commander, we've had 2 centuries to think about that possibility. Would you like to see what we've prepared for uninvited guests who overstay their welcome? Outside the window, the peaceful settlement began to transform once again. This time, instead of defensive installations, massive structures emerged from hidden bays scattered across the landscape. They were ships, Vex-Nine realized, but ships like nothing in the galactic database. Sleek, predatory vessels that somehow managed to look both elegant and absolutely lethal. 37 heavy cruisers, 14 dreadnought-class battleships, and one very special surprise we've been saving for a rainy day, Kane listed casually. All human-designed, human-built, and crewed by people who really don't like being told they can't have something. The tour was over, but the real education was just beginning. As Commander Vex-Nine and his team prepared to return to their ship, he found himself facing a truth that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity hadn't just survived their abandonment. They had thrived, evolved, and become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that treated isolation not as a death sentence, but as an opportunity to become something better, and now they were ready to remind the galaxy exactly why underestimating humans had always been a fatal mistake.